In this Christmas Eve edition of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, Richard Stayman is going to share his thoughts on several prospects that caught his eye at the City of Palms Classic. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, along with my co-host, Richard Stayman, and it is Christmas Eve. It is storming, raining here in Dallas, and you're in D.C.?
Yep, and we got ice this morning.
You got ice. We got rain and ice. I mean, no white Christmas here. I think I would much rather have a white Christmas than raining and thunder. Before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it is not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also check out the Locked On newsletter. It's at LockedOnDaily.com. Your favorite Locked On NBA podcast has a newsletter delivered right to your inbox. And if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please like, share, subscribe, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because we are coming at you 5 days a week. And we're not just covering the NBA draft for 2025. We're covering future drafts. And Richard Stayman was live in attendance. Well, I shouldn't say live, but he was in attendance at the City of Palms Classic. For the listeners that aren't familiar with this classic, I know it's a big-time high school tournament. It's an opportunity to see future NBA players in a high school setting. Tell me about this experience, and why is City of Palms such a big event?
Yeah, it's awesome. I this is my second one. I went last year, and last year, while it did have more talent, this year is also really good. Generally, what it has is it's in Fort Myers, Florida. This is the 51st year that they've had it. Last year was 50, obviously. So they generally get, I would say, somewhere between 25 to 40 of the, or maybe like 25 to 35 of the top 50 players across all high school classes. Not every single one of them, but like 25 to 30 of those 50. And they get talent from all these different prep and public schools that come and play against each other in different slates. So different schools that play in like a smaller league will not compete against like Montfort, but the EYBL's Scholastic League, they'll all play against each other, right? So you have Montfort, who's traditionally, I mean, last year they had the greatest high school team ever assembled, I think. And
but some may say that wasn't even Montvert's greatest high school team.
And that's the thing. So they've won this event a lot of times with other teams that are in contention for the greatest Montfort teams. So you get to see a lot of these top talented programs, most of them generally on the East Coast. I would say there's some that come from the West, but it's more a Midwest East Coast event. And it showcases all these talents. There's kids from the 2027 high school class, 26, and this upcoming one as seniors, 2025. So a lot of NBA talent. The pages that they show in the program, they go multiple pages with how much NBA talent has played in this event. So just to give an idea of how many people have played in this tournament.
Yeah, let's talk about Montverde. They made it to the championship game, and you had mentioned that it was the greatest high school team. So I know, like last year, they had Cooper Flagg, you had Liam McNeely, you had Asa Newell, you had Derek Queen, possibly 4 first-round picks, and then you had Robert Wright was on that team, the point guard from Baylor, who was playing really well as a freshman. And then I get my years mixed up, but I know there was a Scotty Barnes, Day'Ron Sharp team, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago.
And that had Cade, right?
Yeah, and then
I think Dariq Whitehead was technically.
Yeah, I think Dariq Whitehead was on like there for like 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. So but I mean, Montverde is a talent factory, and it's interesting because last night I was at the Mavs game, and I got a call like after the game. I was like, "Why is somebody calling me so late?" And he was on his way back from City of Palms, and the first thing he mentioned was, this Montverde team is good, but it just does not have the star power as last year, where you had, again, Cooper Flagg, Liam McNeely, and so on. But anyway, share your thoughts on why this is an important event to scout and why you made the trip.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I like doing it, one, because I've learned the importance of high school scouting. A lot of times kids don't choose the right school. And, I think Peyton Watson's a prime example. And he's really like one of the big compelling events for me. Why I chose to start scouting high school more closely is I realized, okay, he averaged 3 points a game and 2 rebounds a game on 32% shooting. Why was he a first round pick? And if you watch the high school tape, you can see so much of what there is to offer and why NBA scouts held those data points from high school so closely to them. So having those notes, having the numbers and everything with it, I think it really matters. And then for this event specifically, I like having these notes and, again, data points dating back to when they were in high school so I can see the trends of where they are. So if I see somebody who I'm like, hey, their shot really needs a lot of work, but in 2 years, my notes say, hey, this shot is really good. I think that's a really positive trend that you're able to say we have more background on him. Like, there's a reason so many NBA teams are hiring director of grassroots, and it's to be able to have these data points, right, and be able to track it and see the progression of players. Gives a whole different perspective. Now, for the current element of scouting, I think there's a lot of value to be gained in finding guys that are under the radar. I think that's a really important thing too, to say, hey, this is somebody who the recruiting sites, a lot of it's politicking in a way, who is underranked because of that, and finding those guys and seeing, hey, this could be somebody, and just kind of doing due diligence in that regard.
Quick question. Who is your 2025 NBA draft Peyton Watson? The guy that you think is talented. He just is maybe not in the right situation, chose the wrong school. Do you have one off the top of your head?
I mean, I think the best answer is going to be Donnie Freeman at Syracuse. It's not quite as extreme,
but he's playing though. He's playing.
Right. It's not quite as extreme, but I do think his his stock has tanked compared to where it was 3 months ago.
I had him as a top 10 pick on my big board 1.0. The talent pops out. The shot isn't falling, but I'm glad I'm not the only one that is really high on Donnie Freeman. But I was thinking you're going to say someone like maybe Carter Bryant, maybe the name that I've been hearing a lot from scouts is Darian Reed. I've heard a lot of scouts tell me that they like what they see out of him, and he could be in that range despite not having like really strong accounting stats.
Yeah. And I actually saw Donnie last year, so I think that might be like a little bias. He was at City of Palms last year. So I like him. I think that's the only one who I can think of that qualifies for it for me.
Yeah, no, his talent, at least to me, it popped. Like, it really caught my attention just due to the physical tools. We're talking about Donnie Freeman, a freshman at Syracuse. I think he is a player that has a skill set or talent that fits the modern NBA, where he can play the 3 and the 4. I think he's going to be able to be a pick and pop guy, can put the ball on the floor. He's rebounding well. He's just not shooting the ball at an efficient clip. All right, let's talk about the Boozer twins, the sons of Carlos Boozer. And Kristen Peek and I shared this on a previous podcast. Like, it's going to be nearly impossible to find any high school players going forward and in history that have a better resume than the Boozer twins. I mean, they've won EYBL, 15U, 16U, 17U, 3 state titles, and they won the City of Palms yesterday. And just give me your opinion on Cameron Boozer. We'll start with Cameron Boozer, who some people believe he could be in the mix to be the number 1 pick in the 2026 NBA draft.
Yeah, I personally, I have him number 1. It's nothing against AJ. I'm all in on his feel for the game is off the charts, right? Like you said, he's the son of Carlos Boozer, who I think most people listening know. I can't remember if he was actually an all-star, but he should have been. He was on he was on the Redeem team with Team USA. And Cameron got his feel. Both kids got the feel, and like clearly they grew up playing basketball and like learning the game from their dad and everything. So I think that is one thing, but also everything like efficiency wise off the charts. And the U17s this summer, when they won in the Americas, they cruised. I don't think they won a game by less than 40 or 50 points, which was an unfair team. They also had AJ Devonsa, Tyron Stokes, a bunch of guys, like all the top high school talent. And he was a 70% shooter overall, averaged like 20 points a game on 70% shooting. The thing I like is, even though the 3-point shot's not there, I think that's right now the biggest criticism you can make of him is like his 3 ball is not there. But there's nothing busted about his form. He has incredible touch. Everywhere he goes, he shoots the same. It's like about 33% from 3 and 80 to 85% from the free throw line. And that's a really high upside for somebody who's about 6'9". I've seen anywhere from 6'8" to 6'10". I think he's somebody that, if you look at just that archetype of high feel, high skill, great all-around game, I think he's somebody who's going to be shooting 50 to 60% at that range in the NBA with a 3-level scoring. And I'm all about that.
All right, up next, I want to dig a little bit deeper into Richard's thoughts on Cameron Boozer being the number 1 pick in the 2026 NBA draft. This wasn't on the rundown. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I think it's worth a discussion, because right now everybody's leaning towards AJ Debantza being number 1. Darren Peterson is getting some buzz, and Cameron Boozer has been there the whole time. But I want to hear Richard's thoughts on why he thinks that there's a good shot at Cameron being number 1. With Robinhood Gold, you do not need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks that are usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply, and for specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change, and gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, second segment. Cameron Boozer going to Duke next year. We talked about the son of Carlos. Absolutely dominant high school career as far as production and winning. He's won on every level. And AJ Debantza, like I mentioned, is the favorite to be the number 1 pick in 2026. I personally think that Boozer has a chance. There's some people that just are like, no chance at all. It's all AJ. In your opinion, why does Cameron Boozer have a legitimate chance to be number 1?
I think his analytics are going to be better. I think in an era where numbers matter so much, I think that's going to be a driving force. And also, I mean, he's 6 months younger than AJ. And like at that point, you're kind of nitpicking, but Cam is going to be 18 on draft day. AJ will still be 19. Like, it's just minor things like that where I think teams might go that way. I think ultimately AJ will be the number 1 pick, but for my board, I would pick Cam just because I think he's got so much polish with so much room to improve in his game in a realistic way, like that high floor, high ceiling. And I think AJ is both. Like AJ, by the way, this is not to downplay him in any way. Like what he does on defense, what he does as a playmaker, what he does as a scorer, that combination is incredible at 6'9". I just think that Cam might be somebody where it's like he's going to shoot 55%. AJ is probably going to be around 45 with a little bit different of a shot diet. And I think some teams may want Cam as that guy he's not necessarily going to be the best first option, whereas AJ probably will. But I think that he may be able to add other winning qualities that, like the efficiency, that I think makes up for some of that. Okay. And AJ is a winner. Like I don't want to, imply that he's not. Like both are fantastic. They're 1A, 1B, right? I just have Cam as 1A.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned like AJ's qualities, because I think right now in draft circles, it's almost as if you say, I like Cooper Flagg, then people will pump up what they like about Flagg and then like just talk about the flaws of anyone that is in the same sentence. Like, you hear it all the time. Oh, Cooper Flagg this, well, Dylan Harper can't do this. Ace Bailey can't do this. And then if it's Ace Bailey, then it's like, well, Cooper Flagg can't shoot. He can't do this. And so I'm just glad that there's a clear head that can say that the good qualities of every prospect without taking a hard stance on one and then tearing down the other. I mean, it's just like it's so crazy now. Like that's the dynamic.
Lots
If you like one prospect, then you magnify the flaws of the person that people are comparing to or think are in the same situation. All right, let's talk about Caden Boozer, the point guard. It's just very unique that you have a set of twins that play totally different, have totally different games. And how awesome is it for Duke to have a built-in pick and roll combo coming in next year? I feel like point guard play hasn't been Duke's strongest point over the last couple of years, but next year I think it changes. And on top of that, you have great chemistry between your point guard and your top prospect because they're twins. They know where each other's at all over. But what are your thoughts on Caden Boozer and how did he perform in this tournament?
Yeah, I thought he looked good. It wasn't anything like this is kind of what Caden Boozer is he's the smaller twin. He's a point guard. He's about 6'3", 6'4", some maybe even 6'2", somewhere in that window, right? A lot of high school measurements aren't super accurate, so I tried to give that range. He is a massive floor general. I kind of have the worry about the same thing with Duke with like, they don't have many point guards. What if some of these guys stay? Like Caleb Foster's not a point guard. What if he stays? How does that impact Caden? The kind of sell I would give on Caden is I have like my own database of numbers and stuff on high school talent and the EYBL circuit and all the AAU circuits and everything. For the last 2 years, only 3 players have had a 3-to-1 or better assist to turnover ratio. And all 3, I think, are legitimate prospects. 2 of them are in this draft class, and the other is Caden Boozer. Jace Richardson is number 1. He had 3.24. Caden Boozer is right behind him at 3.2, and LeBaron Philon is right behind him at 3.13. So I think that is a very meaningful stat, considering the next one is about 2.5. So it is a noticeable drop-off. I think that is something where Caden's the best floor general in high school. Like, he sees the floor at such a high level. He can create a little bit for himself where he has soft touch near the rim, like everything, floaters, layups, he's got it. Jump shots getting better, but his ability to make everyone around him better is going to get him drafted. Also, like, he's a Boozer. So it kind of happens where some of the stuff, even if by himself you may not think of him as the highest rated prospect because of what comes with him and everything, like, you know, maybe you can get him and Cam in the same draft because the draft stock's going to be different, might get that. So I think he's somebody, though, that absolutely best point guard in high school, can score a little bit, create, and make everyone around him better.
What were your thoughts on their performance at this Classic?
Well, in the final, so the final game that Columbus played, they weren't too great, but I think everywhere else they were, like, Cam shot, I think 3 of 9. Caden wasn't super efficient either, but it was the same thing, right? It was like, even when the shots weren't falling, they were always making the right plays, playing good defense, making the right reads as a ball handler. They weren't making sloppy turnovers. They never fall victim to that, and I think that is the greatest thing. Even when the game gets super sloppy, they're always excluded from that sloppiness.
Yeah, it looks like it was a somewhat of a low-scoring game, 59-57. I guess for high school, that's not too low-scoring, but we've seen some games where you have like a really talented player where the teams can score a lot of points just because, especially these loaded teams that have multiple high-level prospects. But Columbus beat Montverde 59-57 in the championship game on Monday night. I hear the crowd was sold out, and I'm sure there were tons of scouts. Like, it was a Mavs Blazers game last night, and I was asking some of the people in the front office, like, hey, where's such and such? Does he travel? They're like, no, he's out scouting. And there's not a lot of high school games last night, so I can put 2 and 2 together and figure out that the NBA scouts were at City of Palms. All right, let's talk about Darius Acuff, a guy that had a phenomenal summer last summer. I feel like he may have been like one of the biggest risers. I know he's from Detroit, and he is at IMG this year. He has signed to play at Arkansas. And I want to hear your thoughts on Acuff, and what do you think about him as a prospect long-term?
Yeah, I mean, he's a baller, man. He is somebody that he takes over games. He's an alpha. He is exactly like that kind of dude. When you think of somebody who is that floor general, the alpha, right? The guy who everything relies on him, like, or starts with him, excuse me. Like, it is him. He, for the first half of almost every game, he didn't really do too much for himself. He's trying to get everyone else looks. Then IMG was down double digits in multiple games this week, excuse me. And he decided, okay, I have to save this game myself without being a hero ball. Like, it was very organic. It was okay, my passing isn't going to necessarily, like, we're not hitting shots. I need to do that myself, get to the rim, lightning quick first step. But also he would use jab steps, immediately pop over long defenders, right? Like Chuck Love is a pretty long defender. Multiple times against Lagomir, he would hit him with the jab step, reset, and just pop it over him. And no matter the contest, he was hitting it really well. Like the shot was clean. He draws a lot of fouls. He hits his free throws really well. I think he's going to be one of the most complete guards. And you put him with Calipari, who generally has developed guards very well, may not always get the best output statistically in college, but he's somebody who develops guards very well. I think he's going to thrive so well.
He develops guards, or they come in already developed and he...
Sure, but the guys that have played for him, they end up being good, right? Like he knows how to set them up for success. And I think that is, Acuff is going to be the next, like, you can't say Kentucky guard anymore, but the next Calipari guard, who he may not perform super well in college statistically, like in volume, but when he gets to the NBA, like I think we're going to see something like a major jump. I don't want to throw names as comparisons, but like you look at the production of Tyrese Maxey, right? Like I feel like what's stopping him from getting there? Obviously different players entirely, but that offensively, they're not too dissimilar.
Yeah, 6'2", 175. Any concerns about his height? Just because...
long arms.
What's that?
He's got super long arms.
Yeah, because I've talked to quite a few scouts, and one of the buzzwords is if it's not Trae Young special, then there's some reservations about guards that are 6'2", 6'3", whatever. Of course, you can say like teams made a mistake with Tyrese Maxey, and that's how he fell because maybe they had some concerns about his size. Obviously, Darius Garland was a lottery pick on a very, very small sample size, and he's turned out totally fine. And then there are some people that are still on the fence about Rob Dillingham because of his size. Do you think Acuff will have any reservations, or would teams have any reservations due to him not having like ideal positional size?
Somewhat, like I said, he has long arms. I think that helps. He also is really good at pressuring defenders and forcing turnovers. And it's not like, hey, these are high school kids. Like, it's easier then and whatever. But I really think that is like the competition he's playing is future NBA players, and he is dominating them on defense a lot of times where he can get whatever he wants. He can get in their face and like get really aggressive with them while being controlled. And I think that's what separates him from some of those other guys, right? Rob Dillingham wasn't doing that. Acuff has that mean streak. And I think that's going to go a long way for him to make up for some of that size. I do think there are concerns. Like, I'm not going to say like a 6'2" guy is going to be all defense. I will never, like, no matter who it is going to be extremely hard for that to ever happen. But I don't think he's going to be like some big liability. I'd actually say he's probably pretty neutral. And if you have the offense, if that comes along, being neutral on defense, it's pretty good. Yeah,
he definitely has that Detroit toughness, the chip on his shoulder. And I've always felt like, for the most part, guards or wings from Detroit are very crafty and creative scorers. It's like a style of play in a sense to where they can get a bucket. Like one of my favorite players as far as just being able to score is Jordan Crawford. Like Jordan Crawford would give your favorite NBA player buckets. All right, up next, I want to talk about Cam Holmes, Caleb Holt, Jaden Toombs, and Dante Allen, and hear Richard's thoughts on how they performed at City of Palms. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it is not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will each team score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, last segment. Share your thoughts on Cam Holmes. I know he is undecided right now, and he is one of the most highly sought-after recruits in the country. Tell me your thoughts on how he played and describe his game.
Yeah, he's a 2026 guy, so he's a junior. The name might sound familiar. His brother is Deron Holmes, former first-round pick from this last year. I really liked him. He was an on-court coach. He's extremely cerebral, one of the most talkative in the healthiest ways players on the court at all times on both ends. He's calling out, the defense or the offense's plays on defense. Really like that. The athleticism is really good. The finishing around the rim is nice. I think he has just a really high offensive ceiling. The shot looks a lot better than it did even over the summer. He can defend up and down the lineup. There's just so much of if you look at a modern wing, he's about 6'6", pretty long arms. I think he's somebody that's going to ascend into being a 5-star. Right now, he's like a high 4-star. I think he makes the jump this year. He was the best player on just about every court he stepped on this week, and he played against some other 5-stars. So I think he's somebody that what's up here, the tools, everything, and all that coming together. And also seeing how Deron is learning from that from, I think, a backseat view, I think is going to go a long way for him.
So my question for him is, and I know looking at the heights of brothers is not always fair, but do you think that he has room to grow? Do you think that he can get up to 6'7", 6'8"?
Hard to say. My hope is yes. If he does get up to 6'7", I really think that difference between 6'6" and 6'7", it's 1 inch. I get it. I do think it makes a big difference, though. Generally, the wing size you want to be is 6'7", 6'8". That's the ideal one. 6'6" is pretty small for a wing at this point, given the NBA. I think the average height's 6'4" now. So you kind of want to – the bigger is always better in the NBA, right? So ideally, unclear. He has long arms. Maybe he grows into them. A lot of people, the arms grow first. So unsure.
Yep. All right. Caleb Holt. Tell me your thoughts about Caleb Holt. He's another 2026 guy.
Yep.
And how would you assess his performance at City of Palms?
Yeah, he was really good. He had a bad game against the Boozers. The Boozers took him out completely, foul trouble. The team was overmatched. It's one of those things. I mean, Christopher Columbus is, I think, a top 3 school. Grayson's really good, and I think they're top 25. But the gaps in high school basketball are massive. So that wasn't so much a Caleb Holt issue as much as team just wasn't as good. The Boozers took him out, right? And this is what the Boozers do. Going back to this, is they win against against top guys. I don't know if I think AJ, he had a bad game, but against guys who are, when they play against younger or something, right? Guys who are playing up, they make that gap of age feel known. And that's what I really like about him. There are some issues, I know. I saw you shaking your head. When he went up against AJ, I think he had a bad game. But
I was shaking my head because the Boozers they win. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's hard to beat. I mean, they've won the championship.
Yep.
EYBL every year and 3 state championships in high school. So it's almost you can almost pencil them in for a win. So that's
exactly. Exactly. Well, back to Caleb Holt. Sorry, I sidetracked there. Caleb Holt, I'm just such a big fan of him. I have him as my number 3 player in 2026. Okay. He's a 6'6" wing. I think he's got the right wiring. He's very much open to feedback kind of thing. And for me, he has the best spin move in in high school basketball. He is a massive dude who gets downhill very fast, and he's extremely athletic. And if he puts that spin move on you, you're not winning. In high school right now, he is not winning. Or he's not losing that. So defenders can't stay in front of him. How he gets more and more counters, that's a big step as a junior to be taking. You want to be starting developing that. So as a senior, you can counter when teams go, hey, watch that spin move when it's at the top of the scouting report, right? So that's something he has to improve on. The jump shot consistency is a little bit iffy, but I think the tool is there because he'll make 5 in a row on pull-up jumpers over a defender or spotting up, jab step, ISO, right? Any of that. But then he'll miss 3 straight. So he's a little bit inconsistent as a shooter, but I think he gets there. And all around, you have that kind of a player who I also love his defense. He's very physical, athletic, knows how to use his tools. That's a pretty complete player to me if the ball handling comes around.
Do you think he's a candidate to reclassify? I mean, he's listed at 6'5", 200 pounds. For a wing or guard in high school as a junior, I mean, he's well built, and it's almost like for his senior year, he might just be too dominant.
I would love if he reclassified. He's like a Thanksgiving birthday. So if he did, he would be 18 on draft day. If I'm not, doing the math right, I think, right? So 2026, he'd be 18 on draft day. that and in 18, actually in a month into his rookie season, if all this plays out like that, I'd love to see it.
Let's talk about Jaden Toombs, a kid from the Dallas area. He is going to SMU. He is I don't want to get the relationship wrong, but godson. I know he's very close to Jermaine O'Neal. I don't know if they've raised him or not. I've seen him around for years. And actually one of the first times I watched him play, they played against Cooper Flagg in a tournament. And Cooper Flagg looked like a man compared to the rest of the guys on the floor. And Jaden Toombs is a big dude. But it was just a huge level of talent difference. And I knew, like, watching Toombs, I was like, okay, he's going to be good. He's going to be good down the line. But it was just tough to compare him against Cooper, who was just absolutely just dominating. But anyway, Toombs is a guy. He's going to SMU. I think he's going to be a good college player. So tell me what you saw from him that you liked.
Yeah, I mean, he's a weird player because, like, unique is the word I would use. Actually, not weird, but like in an era that does embrace weird archetypes and play styles, I think he actually does project well. He's about, I think he's 6'8", at best 6'9", but he plays out of the post a lot. That's going to be his biggest change, is how can you adapt to not having the post ups every single time. And that's more for the NBA and college. You might get it still, but his feel for the game is off the charts. And that's why I believe he's actually going to adapt very well to different roles. His jump shot form is a little bit weird and it's definitely inconsistent, but I do think he could shoot. He's willing to shoot. He's I sat right behind the bench and everything, heard every word of every huddle, and everything about him just screams he gets the game. He wants to be coached. He can be a little bit stubborn, but not in a negative way where it's like, he's like, no, I'm right. I'm doing the right thing. And then, like, being receptive at the same time to listening to, hey, this is what we saw. Tell us what you saw. Like, I think that coaching staff is fantastic. And just with Jermaine O'Neal, I think he's going to be in the NBA coaching ranks at some point. But back to Toombs, for him, it's just all of the feel for the game stuff. It's going to come together. The passing, the defensive IQ, and the shooting. That combo, I believe in all of it. And if that's the case at 6'9", I think there's a role for him.
Let's talk about Dante Allen going to Villanova. What did you think about his performance and his upside?
Man, every time I watch him, I walk away just amazed. He's the son of former NBA player Malik Allen. Mm-hmm. He is another one of those kids where it's like he gets the feel for the game. Like everything, it comes so naturally to him. He is very mistake-free. He actually played in EYBL all 3 years with the Boozers, so he was part of that winning team. And he got overlooked, especially this year, because they added Caleb Wilson, who's another top 10 kid in their class. So he was the fourth option a lot of times, Dante Allen, and he was easily the best fourth option, the best third option last year in EYBL. And I really like his game. Like in games where he is the first option, he plays so well. He scales up to it. He can defend. He's a bulldog in that way. He can pass. He's a floor general. He can get to the rim. He can shoot. The shot still needs to be a little bit sped up, but it's nothing abnormal for his age. So I just like everything he's got in terms of what's up here and also the tools. I think he's got a lot of it. I think he's about 6'3", so it's like fine size. It's nothing bad, nothing great, but he's a point guard that hasn't had a lot of chances to showcase point guard ability outside of Montvert now. And I think he's going to be somebody who absolutely climbs up boards in the next year and a half.
Yeah, I just noticed something. Just based off of the list and the players that we've talked about in the rundown, you have the Boozer twins, whose dad is Carlos Boozer. You have Darius Acuff, whose cousin is Rashad Phillips, who a lot of people know Rashad from, NBA draft talk, but Rashad was a phenomenal player in his own right at University of Detroit. You got Cam Holmes, whose brother is Deron Holmes, who's a first-round pick. Jaden Toombs has pretty much been raised by Jermaine O'Neal, and then you got Dante Allen, who's the son of Malik Allen. If I'm not mistaken, he's on the Miami Heat staff. I mean, we're starting to see it more and more. Some of the players, at least I grew up watching, they're kids, from Jace Richardson to Elijah Arenas to Trevor Ariza's son. Do you think we're going to start seeing a lot more kids of former NBA players or high-level stars?
I know the answer is yes. I mean, Link has Andre Iguodala Jr., who's a senior this year. There's another NBA player that I didn't even mention his kid, which is Jackson Richardson. And I kind of mentioned Jace. Like, that's another one. That's Jason Richardson's son. There's a lot. And I know there were other NBA players' kids here at the event as well, because I saw them there. Like Kai and Anthony was there.
Yeah.
And
Jermaine O'Neal has a son. That's one.
Jermaine, very good as well. Like he is somebody to. It's yes, the NBA legacies. This is really, I'd say, the first. It's not the first generation of this, but I think this is the first explosion of the generations, right? Where it's just all their kids are playing basketball. And, like it's not, I mean, even Bronny, right? Like Bronny obviously is the first father-son duo with LeBron, but like, I think that was overlooked because there are a lot of other kids, even in that his own class, that were NBA legacies that are still in college.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. We have the shift from college basketball to high school prospects. And we're going to do a lot more of that this season, as I think this 2026 NBA draft class is loaded and definitely want to start talking about them a little bit more. But once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Thank you for tuning in on Christmas Eve or even on Christmas. So we appreciate that. Make sure you check out the Locked On newsletter at lockedondaily.com. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe or Richard Stayman, and we are out of here. Merry Christmas.